Introduction. In a quiet room at the University of Toronto in the late 1960s, a mother and her one-year-old child sat on the floor. The room was filled with colorful toys, blocks, balls, and plastic trucks. It was a peaceful scene. The child felt safe enough to crawl away from his mother's feet to pick up a bright red car. He looked back at her, she smiled, and he kept playing. This was the calm. Then, the door opened. A stranger walked in and sat down. A few minutes later, the mother quietly stood up and left the room. For some children, this moment changed everything. This was the strange situation, a famous study by a psychologist named Mary Ainsworth. She wanted to see what happened when the person a child relied on most suddenly disappeared. Most people thought all children would react the same way. They thought the kids would cry for a bit and then go back to their toys. But that isn't what happened. Ainsworth watched through a one-way mirror and saw three very different worlds. Some children were secure. They cried when mom left, but they were happy and easily calmed when she came back. Some were avoidant. They acted like they didn't care at all, though their hearts were actually racing. Then there were the anxious children. When the mother left, these children didn't just cry. They fell apart. They were inconsolable. But the most surprising part happened when the mother returned. Instead of being happy to see her, these children were angry. They would reach out to be held, but then they would kick or push her away. They wanted her close, but they were too hurt to trust that she wouldn't leave again. They were stuck in a loop of wanting love and fearing it would be taken away. If you are reading this book, you probably know exactly how those children felt. You might be an adult now, but that same feeling, that desperate need to stay close to someone who feels like they are slipping away, is still alive inside you. The weight of the weight. You know the feeling of the weight. It is the heavy, sick sensation in your stomach when you send a text and see no reply for hours. It is the way your brain turns into a movie theater, playing every possible scene of what you did wrong or why they are going to leave you. You check your phone 100 times a day. You look at their social media to see if they are active. And when you see they are online but not talking to you, it feels like a physical blow to the chest. People tell you to just relax or be more confident, but they don't understand. To your brain, this isn't just a missed text. It feels like a threat to your survival. This is the anxious avoidant trap. You are drawn to people who seem strong and independent, but the moment you get close, they pull back. They say they need space. They say you are too much or too needy. And because you are terrified of losing them, you try harder. You overfunction. You do more, give more, and fix more, hoping that if you can just be the perfect partner, they will finally stay. But the harder you pull, the faster they run. You end up exhausted, lonely, and wondering why you keep choosing the same person with a different face. You feel like your happiness is a hostage held by someone who doesn't even seem to want it. The promise of a new path. It does not have to be this way. Your attachment style is not a life sentence. It is just a blueprint, a map of love that was drawn for you before you were old enough to speak. And just like any map, it can be redrawn. By the time you finish this book, you will no longer be a passenger in your own emotional life. You will be the pilot. You will learn how to turn off the alarm system in your brain that tells you silence means abandonment. You will discover how to find your worth inside yourself, rather than looking for it in someone else's phone screen. You are going to become securely attached. Imagine what that feels like. Imagine being in a relationship where you don't have to guess how the other person feels. Imagine being able to say, "I need more communication," without feeling like you are begging. Imagine meeting someone who is consistent, kind, and available, and actually feeling a spark for them instead of finding them boring. This isn't just about finding a better partner. It is about becoming a version of yourself that is so steady and so sure that no one else's mood can knock you off balance. You are going to build a built-in sense of safety that stays with you, whether you are in a relationship or standing on your own. Why this works? This approach is not based on positive thinking or simple dating advice. It is based on over 70 years of hard science. We are going to look at how your nervous system is wired. We are going to use the work of people like John Bowlby, who prove that the need for connection is as real as the need for food. We are going to use the discoveries of neurobiology to show you how to physically rewire the parts of your brain that keep you stuck in fear. This is a toolkit for your heart. It is a way to understand the why behind your pain so you can finally move toward the how of your healing. Meet Maya. In a minimalist apartment in Austin, Texas, the only light comes from the blue glow of a smartphone. It is 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. Maya Rodriguez, a 32-year-old graphic designer, is sitting on the edge of her bed. She should have been asleep 2 hours ago. She has a big presentation at her tech firm tomorrow morning, but she can't close her eyes. She is staring at 3 gray dots on her screen. They appear, then disappear. Then they appear again. Maya is waiting for Julian. They have been seeing each other for 6 months, but it feels like she has lived a lifetime in that time. When they are together, it's magic. He is charming and smart, and he looks at her like she is the only person in the world. But the moment he leaves her apartment, he vanishes. He doesn't text for days. When he finally does, he acts like nothing happened. Maya sent him a simple text at 7 p.m. Hey, had a great time last night. Want to grab dinner Thursday? 4.5 hours. No reply. Maya's heart is racing. Her chest feels tight, like there is a heavy stone sitting on her lungs. She is mind-looping. Did I say something wrong? Was I too affectionate? Maybe he realized I'm not actually his type. Maybe he's with someone else right now. She picks up her phone and starts to type a second message. Hey, just checking in. She deletes it. She types another. Is everything okay? She deletes that too. She feels like she is losing her mind. She is a senior designer. She manages teams. She is creative and successful. But right now she feels like that 1-year-old child in this strange situation, crying at the door for someone who won't come back. Maya believes that if she can just figure out the right way to be, the right amount of space to give, the right things to say, Julian will finally feel safe enough to love her back. She doesn't realize yet that she is playing a game that is rigged against her. She doesn't realize that her neediness is actually a normal response to an unreliable person. We are going to follow Maya as she navigates this journey. We will see her at her lowest points, and we will watch as she learns the skills to change her life. Through her story, you will see your own. The journey ahead. This book is your guide to moving from the panic Maya feels to the peace you deserve. Here's how we will get there. We will reclaim your sovereignty. You will learn how to stop being a thermometer that only reacts to the temperature of the room and start being a thermostat that sets its own emotional tone. We will look into the biology of the spark. You will learn why your brain confuses anxiety with chemistry, and why you are drawn to people who pull away. We will visit the ghost of childhood past. We will look at how your early life created your current patterns, and how to heal those old wounds. We will master communication. You will learn how to speak your truth without the protest behaviors that drive people away. We will build your secure base. You will learn how to vet new partners and how to build a relationship that is based on stability rather than a chase. The road to self-assurance is not a straight line. There will be days when you feel like you've got it all figured out, and nights when you find yourself staring at the phone again. But every step you take with this book is a step toward a version of you that is no longer afraid. You have spent enough time waiting. You have spent enough time chasing. It is time to come home to yourself. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Reclaiming Your Emotional Sovereignty. In a drafty room in London, a young doctor sat across from a boy who had stolen a gold watch. The year was 1944. Outside, the world was at war, but inside the clinic, John Bowlby was fighting a different kind of battle. He was trying to figure out why some children seemed to have a hole in their hearts that they tried to fill with stolen things. "Why did you take it, Derek?" Bowlby asked quietly. The boy didn't look up. He didn't shrug. He didn't even look angry. He just sat there as still as a statue. He didn't seem to care about the watch, the police, or even his own mother sitting in the hallway. Bowlby realized that Derek wasn't a bad boy. He was a hollow boy. Bowlby spent months talking to 44 young thieves. He found a strange pattern. Many of these kids had been separated from their mothers or caregivers when they were very small. They hadn't been held enough. They hadn't been told they were safe. Because they didn't have a solid base at home, they grew up feeling like the world was a shaky, dangerous place. He called this maternal deprivation. It sounded like a fancy medical term, but it really just meant a lack of steady love. Bowlby saw that when a child doesn't feel sure about their parents' love, they stop acting like themselves. They either become very loud and angry to get attention, or they shut down and stop feeling anything at all. This was the beginning of what we now call attachment theory. Bowlby realized that feeling safe with another person isn't a bonus in life. It is a biological need, just like breathing or eating. Without it, our internal compass breaks. We stop owning our own lives because we are too busy trying to find someone else to tell us we are okay. The myth of the needy personality. Most people believe a very common lie. They think that if they feel anxious in a relationship, it is because they are weak or too much. You might have been told that you are just a needy person. You might believe that you were born with a heart that is too loud and a mind that won't stop worrying. This is the myth we have to break right now. Being anxious about love is not a personality flaw. It is a survival response. When Bowlby looked at those 44 thieves, he didn't see bad personalities. He saw human beings whose brains were stuck in emergency mode. When you don't feel sure that the person you love is going to stay, your brain sounds an alarm. It's like a smoke detector going off in your chest. You aren't being dramatic. You are responding to a perceived threat to your safety. In your brain's logic, being left alone feels the same as being in physical danger. People think that sovereignty, which is just a big word for being the boss of your own life, means you don't need anyone. That's another myth. True sovereignty isn't about being a lone island. It's about having a solid internal working model. This is a map in your head that tells you, I am valuable, and I can handle what happens next. When that map is missing, you don't act like a boss. You act like a passenger in a car driven by someone else. You spend all your time watching their face, trying to guess which way they are going to turn, hoping they don't pull over and tell you to get out. Maya in the boardroom. In a sun-drenched office in Austin, Texas, Maya Rodriguez sat at the head of a long glass table. She was a senior graphic designer, and today she was presenting her biggest project yet. On the screen were beautiful, bold colors and clean lines. She looked like the picture of success. But under the table, Maya's thumb was hovering over her phone. 10 minutes ago, she saw a notification. Julian, the man she had been seeing for 6 months, had liked a photo of a sunset on Instagram. He hadn't, however, replied to the text she sent him 4 hours ago asking about their dinner plans. Maya's heart wasn't in the boardroom. It was in that notification. She felt a cold, sinking feeling in her stomach. A like meant he was on his phone. It meant he saw her message. It meant he was choosing not to answer. Maya? What do you think about the font choice here? Her boss asked. Maya blinked. She felt like she had just woken up from a dream. Her mind was a mess of mental movies. She was already picturing Julian out with someone else, or Julian deciding she was too much work, or Julian slowly drifting away until he vanished completely. The font, yes, she stammered. It's a bold. It stands out. Her mentor gave her a strange look. Are you with us today, Maya? In that moment, Maya realized something terrifying. She wasn't the pilot of her own life. She had handed the controls to a man who wasn't even in the room. Her mood, her focus, and her sense of worth were all tied to a single unread text message. She was acting as a thermometer. She was simply reacting to the temperature of the room Julian created. If he was warm, she felt great. If he was cold, she felt like she was freezing to death. The still face and the disappearing self. Why does this happen? Why can a simple like on social media or a short text make a grown, successful woman feel like she's falling apart? To understand this, we have to look at a famous study from 1975 called the still face experiment. A researcher named Edward Tronick sat a mother across from her baby. At first they played. The mother smiled, and the baby smiled back. The mother made a funny noise, and the baby giggled. They were in sync. They were co-regulating. Then, the researcher told the mother to stop. The mother turned her face into a blank mask. She didn't leave. She stayed right there, but she didn't react. She just stared. The baby noticed immediately. First, the baby tried to get her back. He smiled bigger. He pointed at things. He made little noises. When that didn't work, he started to get frantic. He waved his arms. He arched his back. Finally, when the mother stayed still, the baby collapsed. He turned away, started to cry, and looked like his whole world had ended. This happened in less than 3 minutes. When your partner goes still, when they stop replying, stop looking at you, or pull away emotionally, your brain reacts exactly like that baby's brain. You enter a state of protest. You send check-in texts. You post photos to get their attention. You overfunction, trying to do everything right so they will smile at you again. But here's the problem. While you are busy trying to fix them, you are losing yourself. You are giving up your emotional sovereignty. You are telling your brain that your safety depends entirely on their face not being still. The sovereignty shift from passenger to pilot. John Bowlby once said, "What cannot be spoken to the mother cannot be said to the self." If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally distant, like Maya's father, or a parent who was always worried, like Maya's mother, you learned a dangerous lesson. You learned that you have to manage the people around you to feel okay. You learned that your needs are a secret you have to keep, so you don't bother anyone. Reclaiming your sovereignty means learning to say those things to yourself. It means moving from a passenger mindset to a pilot mindset. A passenger asks, "What do they think of me? Why aren't they calling? What can I do to make them stay? Am I enough for them?" A pilot asks, "How do I feel right now? Is this person being consistent and kind to me? Is this relationship meeting my needs? Is this person good for my peace of mind?" Notice the difference. The passenger is looking out the window, hoping the driver doesn't crash. The pilot is looking at the dashboard and deciding where the plane should go. When Maya sat in that boardroom, she was a passenger. She was waiting for Julian to drive her back to a place of feeling okay. To become the pilot, Maya had to take her focus off Julian's like and put it back on her own life. She had to realize that her career, her talents, and her day were her own property. The internal working model. Bowlby's biggest discovery was the internal working model. Think of this like a blueprint for a house. If your blueprint says the foundation is solid, you don't worry when a storm hits. You know the house will stand. But if your blueprint was drawn with shaky lines and missing walls, every bit of wind feels like a hurricane. You spend all your time trying to hold the walls up with your bare hands. Most people with anxious attachment are trying to build a house on someone else's land. They think if they can just find the right person, that person will provide the foundation. But sovereignty means you own the land. You build the foundation inside yourself first. This doesn't mean you don't need people. It means you don't need a specific person's constant attention just to feel like you exist. Bowlby's 44 Thieves showed us that emotional security is a biological necessity. But he also showed us that when we don't get it as children, we have to find a way to build it as adults. We have to become our own secure base. Taking back the keys. How do you start taking back your sovereignty today? It starts with a very simple, very difficult shift in focus. Right now, your mind is probably like a high-powered telescope. You are zoomed in on your partner. You are looking at the tiniest details. Did they use an emoji? Did they sound tired on the phone? Why did they take 20 minutes to reply when they usually take 10? You have to turn the telescope around. You have to look at yourself. The next time you feel that anxious itch, that frantic need to check your phone or fix a situation, stop. Don't ask, what is wrong with them? Ask, what is happening inside me? When you do this, you are practicing the sovereignty shift. You are acknowledging that your emotions belong to you, not to the person you are dating. You are deciding that you are the only one allowed to have the keys to your happiness. Maya began to do this by accident. After the meeting, she went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. She saw how tired she looked. She saw how much energy she was wasting on a man who wasn't even there. I am a senior designer, she whispered to herself. I just ran a $1 million presentation. And I'm letting a sunset photo on Instagram ruin my afternoon. She didn't text Julian again. She didn't check his last seen status. She put her phone in her bag, went back to her desk, and started working on a new project. She didn't feel perfectly happy right away. The anxiety was still there, buzzing like a bee in a jar, but she had made a choice. She had moved from the passenger seat to the pilot seat. The reality of the hunger. We have to be honest about one thing. The hunger for connection is real. Harry Harlow, another scientist we will talk about later, proved that we are hardwired to want contact comfort. You aren't crazy for wanting to be close to someone. But when that hunger makes you stay in a situation where you are being ignored or mistreated, it isn't love anymore. It's a loss of self. Sovereignty is the realization that you would rather be hungry for a little while than eat crumbs off the floor. When you reclaim your sovereignty, you start to see that you are the prize. You are the one who gets to decide who is worthy of your time. You stop asking, will they choose me, and you start asking, will I choose them? Bowlby's thieves were looking for something they couldn't find. They thought objects could replace the feeling of being seen and kept safe. But you aren't a child anymore. You don't have to steal scraps of attention from people who aren't ready to give them. You can build your own safety. You can draw a new blueprint. You can decide that your heart is a kingdom, and you are the only one who wears the crown. The first step of the journey. This book is going to teach you how to stop the chase. It is going to show you why you are drawn to people who pull away, and how to finally feel a spark with people who are actually good for you. But it all starts here. It starts with the decision that you are no longer willing to let your peace of mind be a hostage to someone else's whims. You are going to feel the urge to go back to your old ways. Your brain is used to the panic. It's used to the protest. But every time you choose to focus on your own life instead of their silence, you are rewiring your brain. You are building that internal working model that says you are safe. You are not needy. You are not too much. You are a human being with a biological need for connection. But you are also a person who deserves to be the boss of your own heart. The road to being securely attached is long, but the first step is simple. Put the phone down, take a breath, and come back to yourself. The pilot is back in the cockpit. The journey has begun. Your worth is not a question for others to answer, it is a truth for you to own. Chapter 2. Why do we crave the people who pull away? If you could hover above a city like a bird, you would see a strange pattern in the way people move. From high up, the streets look like a giant maze. You would see thousands of people walking, driving, and sitting in cafes. But if you watched closely, you would see a very specific dance happening over and over again. You would see one person reaching out, leaning in, or walking toward someone else. At the exact same time, you would see the other person stepping back, turning their head, or walking away. It looks like a game of tag where nobody ever gets caught. It is a loop that repeats in apartments, office buildings, and parks. One person is always the chaser, and the other is always the runner. To the bird in the sky, it looks exhausting. But to the people on the ground, it feels like the most important thing in the world. They don't call it a chase. They call it chemistry. They call it the spark. They think the intensity of the run is proof of how much they love the person who is leaving them behind. In 1958, a scientist named Harry Harlow wanted to understand why we do this. He worked at a lab in Wisconsin, and he was curious about the very first bond we ever form. At the time, most doctors thought babies only loved their mothers because mothers provided food. They thought love was just a thank you for calories. Harlow didn't believe that. He suspected that humans, and our close relatives in the animal kingdom, had a hunger that was much deeper than a physical stomach ache. He believed we had a hunger for touch. The mother machine. Harlow set up a famous experiment with baby monkeys. He gave them 2 different mothers made of wire and wood. The first mother was a cold, hard frame made of mesh wire. It had a bottle of milk attached to it. If the baby monkey wanted to eat, it had to go to the wire mother. The second mother was also a frame, but it was wrapped in soft tan cloth. It had no food. It just stood there, warm and fuzzy. If the doctors from the 1950s were right, the monkeys should have spent all their time with the wire mother. After all, she was the one who kept them alive. But that isn't what happened. The baby monkeys would go to the wire mother just long enough to gulp down their milk. As soon as they were done eating, they would leap over to the cloth mother. They would climb onto her, wrap their arms around her, and stay there for 18 hours a day. When Harlow introduced something scary into the room, like a mechanical toy that made loud noises, the monkeys didn't run to the food. They ran to the cloth. They would cling to the soft mother until their hearts slowed down and their fear went away. Harlow called this contact comfort. He proved that the need for a safe, soft place to land is a primary biological drive. It is just as strong as the need for water or air. When we don't have it, we don't just feel sad. We feel like we are in physical danger. Our brains send out a loud alarm that says, "You are alone. You are not safe. Find someone to hold on to right now." For someone with an anxious attachment style, this alarm is very loud. It is set to a high volume all the time. This is where the trouble begins. When we grow up feeling like our cloth mother might disappear at any second, we stop looking for food or hobbies or career goals. We spend all our energy staring at the person we love, making sure they are still there. We become like those baby monkeys, but we are clinging to people who are often made of wire instead of cloth. The spark trap. Maya Rodriguez sat at a small wooden table in a coffee shop called Cup of Joy. It was a Saturday afternoon in Austin, and the sun was shining through the windows. Across from her sat Mark. Mark was a nice guy. He was a teacher, he had a calm voice, and he had actually shown up 5 minutes early for their date. Mark was talking about his favorite hiking trails. He was being open and kind. He looked Maya in the eye when he spoke. By all accounts, this was a perfect date. But Maya felt nothing. She felt like she was watching a movie with the sound turned off. She was smiling and nodding, but inside she was thinking, "He's so nice. Why am I so bored?" She felt like there was no spark. She told herself that Mark was just too stable or plain. Then her phone buzzed in her pocket. She knew that specific vibration. It was a text from Julian. Julian was the man she had been seeing on and off for 3 years. He hadn't texted her in 4 days. He had needed space after they had a great dinner the previous weekend. Maya's heart didn't just beat, it hammered against her ribs. Her hands started to sweat. A rush of heat went from her stomach up to her neck. She felt a surge of energy that was so strong it made her dizzy. She didn't even have to read the text to feel the high. Just knowing he was reaching back out made her feel alive in a way that Mark's kind conversation never could. This is what we call the spark trap. The spark trap is a mental model that explains why anxious people often walk away from healthy partners and run toward difficult ones. It has 3 parts. The confusion of anxiety and chemistry. When someone pulls away from us, our attachment alarm goes off. This creates physical symptoms.